Waiver Wire Hunters win leagues. And today we're going to show you how to hunt. All right. Now, here's the intro. Hi, guys. It's the talented Mr. Taco here from the Daily Sporting with Ricky, coming to you with the first episode of a series that we like to keep going forward. It's Waiver Wire Wednesdays, or our Waiver Wire Watch. Today, we're going to cover a lot of the players that, four specifically players that you should be looking at, or you could look at in your leagues that are under 50% owned for a pickup. And one of the big things about the Waiver Wire, I feel like, is that it's an underrated tool that helps you get to your championship. Don't you agree, Ricky?
Yeah, definitely. Especially in basketball where it's a long season.
Mm-hmm.
In basketball, you can pick up. There's always guys you pick up.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's the beginning or they get hot, or you find a gem in the middle. Like they come back from injury. A lot of that is also going on.
Mm-hmm.
They're on the injury list. They were on COVID, whatever it may be, and they're
Mm-hmm.
coming back, and you stash them away. I mean, in basketball, you get that more than anything. So
Mm-hmm.
picking up someone off the waiver wires is probably one of the most important things during the whole season.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And especially with what's been going on, there's been a ton of injuries, which have opened up opportunities for guys who are, sometimes outplaying some of the guys that we have on our roster who really aren't doing that much, but sometimes hold a bigger name than their actual value. And I think that's one thing I notice a lot in leagues is that sometimes guys with names like a Cole Anthony will get, rostered and people will go after him because he has that flashy name and high upside. But when you look at him for fantasy basketball purposes and some of these other guys like that, there's probably a lot of better options on their waiver wire that they can probably get. And one player that I want to get into first is someone that Ricky had brought up, and we're going to cover Jeremy Lamb. Now, Jeremy Lamb this season is rostered in 53% of leagues as of Wednesday. We are recording this on Tuesday, the 2nd of February. This will come out on the 3rd of February. So anything that happened on Tuesday's games, which there aren't many teams playing, will affect the numbers. But as of right now, he's owned at 53% of rosters, shooting 49% from the field, 94% from the free throw, 1.7 threes per game, 13.4 points per game, 4.7 rebounds, 1.6 assists, 0.9 steals, 0.9 blocks, and 1 turnover per game. Over his last week, he's been hitting 1.73s, 9 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. Now, Ricky, tell us why you're high on Jeremy Lamb.
Basically, you were going over the stats. Two of those big ones are he's shooting career highs in field goal percentage and beyond at 3 range. So he's better, I think, most than most shooting guards. I think he also niched his spot. Look, he's not. There is a ceiling to him, but to me, the ceiling for him is way better than a lot of people that you're hoping for. He's more consistent. I think within the last 6 out of 7 games, he's had double-digit points. And again, my biggest thing for me is that he has his minutes already carved out with Indiana, and it's possible to get better as the season prolongs. And as we all know, he just came back from injury. I think if you look at the games he's played, he's had I think it was 1 bad game, and that was the first game he started. So to me, Jeremy Lamb is again. There is a ceiling. I'm not going to tell you, there's a high ceiling. There really isn't. You kind of know what you're getting, but what you're getting is better than most things you can find out there. And again, 53%, he's still out there. He's available for you to pick up. I mean, you're reading the stats off. He did good the last few games, really since he's came back from the injury.
Yep. And to illustrate Ricky's point here, on the season average, Jeremy Lamb is currently ranked 52 overall. He's rostered again in 53% of leagues. So that means more than half of you people out there have an opportunity to pick up a guy that's playing really well for his team and puts up really efficient stats. That's one of the main things that I love to talk about on the players that I like to pick up. If you look at his season average, 49% from the field goal, 95% from the line, 1 turnover. That's phenomenal numbers when you think about the overall scope of it. He's getting 1.7 threes per game, 13 points. So he's getting you some points. He gets you almost a block and steal per game. So he fills the stat sheet. And I think that's a very vital thing. And with that being
And I
said,
think what you said is right. You said efficient. Again, people always want to get that high. You talked about him quickly, like, oh my God, scoring 23 points. Look, that's far and few between when you pick up waiver wire guys like that. I was lucky to get quickly off the waiver. That's far and few between that you get. And again, you're hoping that he does this for the rest of the season. That is a find. That is a gem. You're not going to get that normally. Lamb is a more consistent. You said more efficient. That is the biggest thing, for me is he gives you consistency.
And the thing about guys like Quickly and stuff like that. I definitely have been all over him since the beginning of the season. Even with the draft, I drafted this kid, thinking that point guard position for the Knicks is so open. And we covered him last week on the show. He was a highlight. We saw his ownership last week was at 25%. It ballooned up to over 52% right now currently. So definitely he's a guy that we've
I think
definitely
that's still low.
covered.
I think that's still low.
I think that's still low as well. But
I think you're going to see it go up to the 70%.
Well, I think by the end of the season, he's going to be over 90% owned if he gets the starting role. I think that's the biggest dynamic here that's just holding back his ownership, is that position and that situation with Quickly is when will he get that starter's role? Because once he gets that starter's role, because he has games where he's efficient, he has games where he isn't efficient. That's what you're going to get when you have a rookie that's first starting out in the league and is getting used to everything, the dynamics, the up down, your body getting used to it. So I see him being more efficient.
I maybe fibs or tip is he's thinking he is a rookie. He's slowing him in. He sees it because look, with Quickly, it's again, we don't want to go into that right now because you talked about it, but he's playing only 19 minutes. I mean, that could go up, but maybe he's easing him in way in there. Well, because at this point, Payton's not the starter at this point. I mean,
Well, I mean,
that's kind of what he does.
Exactly. But the thing about Quickly here that we know is he's starting to trend up. Right now, he's averaging 26 minutes per game over his last week. He's currently ranked 96. So his free throw is great. His turnovers are low, but his field goal, like you said, it is leaving something to desire at 42%. But I do think with him getting used to the game, and if you see the way he plays, I think he has that potential to be I don't want to say Tyler Hero, but that kind of an impact of rookie where it's like, oh, I didn't see this kid as being, a guy that could really be in the rotation, and he becomes a vital part of your playoff run. If the Knicks were to make a playoff run, or for your fantasy team, this is a guy with that potential. And again, you still have to watch. You still have to see what happens, because maybe with the more minutes, things become less efficient, and he's not able to handle it at this young age. So that's something we have to caution with. That's why he has such low ownership. But this is like when you're getting in low into GME, you got to have those diamond hands. You got to hold on to the stock. And I've had paper hands with him because I was going through so many guys and injuries that I dropped him. And I had GME with with him, but I had the paper hand.
I'm surprised because I didn't have the number, and not that he's a number one waiver wire, but I had him number 6. I'm surprised no one ahead of me took him.
Yeah, well, you know what it is. It's his inefficiencies and the ability to understand when he takes it over. But I've been bouncing him on and off the waiver wire now for a little bit, so I kind of got.
Who's your guy that you're talking?
Well, what do you mean?
Who's the guy your guy, the one that you're talking about now? Not Quickly. I'm talking about your
I get you. So with that being said, the next guy that I'm going to be talking about is Thaddeus Young. Now, Thaddeus Young is playing with the Chicago Bulls, and the Chicago Bulls recently had a big injury. It happened to Wendell Carter. He had a quad injury, and with this quad injury, he's going to be out. We're going to be looking at anywhere for about 4 weeks, and that was about a week ago. So he's about 3 more weeks left, roughly, with this injury. But since during the season, he's averaged 45% from the field, 56. He's rostered in 45% of leagues. He's shooting 56% from the field. But if you look more closely down to his weekly average, what he's been doing over these last couple of games, he's really been stepping it up. He's been hitting 45% of his shots, 67% from the free throw line. He's getting about 30 minutes per game. He's hitting about half a 3 per game. He has 10.5 points per game. He has 9.5 rebounds per game, and he has 9.5 assists per game, with 1 steal and 0.5 blocks and 1 turnover. Right now, Thaddeus Young is running hot. and he's going to have the opportunity to get a lot of minutes. So I think in this situation, he's someone that I would like to pick up for a short period of time. I like to get him now while he's rolling and he's going to get the minutes, and then we see what happens. Because Thaddeus Young was a good player. The question is he going to be able to hold up? Because especially at his age and with that roster construction, he wasn't getting the minutes. But now with the Wendell Carter injury, he has this opportunity where he could possibly be a really dynamic player with this Bulls team, especially with all the scorers around him and Lauri Markkanen, Zach LaVine, Kobe White. They have scorers all over this field, so he can keep this assist number up because he'll keep getting the ball off of rebounds and coming down the floor to these guys. So I don't think he's going to maintain quite these numbers, but I do think he's going to be someone that'll be someone that you can hold on to for at least the next couple of weeks and get some real value out of him. Because when you think about, guys that are putting up near a triple double, on a basis that's far and few between.
From seeing even just the last game against the Knicks, he looks like a different player. The numbers show that. Again, Thaddeus Young was a really good player.
Yeah.
He was an asset on a lot of fantasy teams. I remember trading for Thaddeus Young. Like, he was an asset. And again, it's not like you just lose it. It could be a lot of things. I don't remember if he had injuries, but again, you're definitely right. He's going to get the minutes now. Carter, we don't know when he's coming back, right? I don't think they even.
We're looking
exactly when he's coming back.
Roughly, he's going to be coming back in like another 3 weeks or so. But to this,
and if they're saying 3 weeks, to me, that's always like 4 or 5.
Well, it was 4 weeks a week ago. So we're looking at roughly 3 weeks ago because he got hurt about
3 weeks. 3 weeks is still a long time.
Yep.
And again, even with the player that I'm going to talk about next, like when they start doing well, it's hard to not find the minutes for them.
Yeah, and even
he's going to have time to keep continuing to do that.
And one thing that I also want to highlight, it's okay to only pick up a player for 2 or 3 weeks, knowing that I got 2 or 3 weeks out of this guy, and then I'm going to eject him and pick someone else up when someone comes back for this time, because you want to win these weeks now. You want to put yourself in a good position. Maybe another injury happens where, God forbid, Lauri Markkanen gets hurt, and then when Wendell Carter comes back, it's like Thaddeus Young still has playing time because there's another guy out to get his minutes from. So you don't know the situation, so you want to hold him until you figure out what's going on. But then once you figure out what's going on, if you want to eject them and pick up another hot player, I live by that. I win by that. I'll take a guy for 2 weeks and then drop and pick up somebody else.
Yeah, it's always good in a lot of fancies to have a spot where you could kind of rotate.
Yeah.
And find out, because in basketball, it's about getting hot. They'll give you 4 or 5 games, and 4 or 5 games could be 2 weeks where you win it, and it could be a difference between you getting in the playoffs, not getting in. Whether you get first place, whatever it may be. You need as many wins as you can. It's a long season run. Just give them away.
It could get you the matchup differential that you need that would have get you from going from the second round to going to the finals. And we know firsthand that literally it's all luck and a crapshoot at a certain point once you get to the finals. Some teams are significantly better, but they could even have a slew of injuries that affect them at one time where it kind of just literally happens where you lose 4 guys in 1 week. So that definitely is a possibility. And speaking of losing guys, I think this speaks to the next guy that Ricky. One last thing before we get to that. Thaddeus Young in the last day has gone up 26% on his ownage or in his roster percentage. So when we say something about Thaddeus Young, he's someone that you want to get as soon as possible because people are moving fast on him. He's probably going to be over 50 within the next day or two. So he's definitely someone you want to get now, and you want to try to just ride the hot. It's just like the stocks. We're getting AMC right now. We just want to ride it until we can jump out. All right. And now the next guy that we're talking about, like I said, is Reggie Jackson from the Los Angeles Clippers. He's only rostered in 31% of leagues. He was getting 17 minutes per game on average for the season, but over the last week, he's been getting 31 minutes per game. He's been shooting 48% from the field, 75% from the free throw line, 2.5 threes per game, 16 points per game, 6 rebounds per game, 5 assists, 1.3 steals, 0.3 blocks, and 1.5 turnovers. So when you're looking at this guy, he's another efficient player. He's hitting the three. He's getting you some steals. And Ricky, break down why the guys should like Reggie Jackson, the guys in the galaxy.
Well, I mean, Reggie Jackson is someone that I posted on Daily Sporting on Instagram. Um, because one, the biggest reason at first at that point was we didn't know if Paul George or Kawhi Leonard was going to start. Beverly was hurt. He was starting for him. And and again, Reggie Jackson is one of these guys that Reggie Jackson was good. He used to put up numbers. Reggie Jackson. People wanted Reggie Jackson on their team. You know what I mean? And as soon as he got the minutes, he's been putting up the numbers I thought. Now, again, Beverly is going to come back at some point. Not really sure when. But I think, again, he's someone that kind of, when I'm reading out there that they're kind of tough on saying, hey, we're just going to sit him down and give him back to 17 minutes only per game. I think that's going to be higher than what it was during the beginning of the season, even when Beverly comes back. And again, I think if Reggie Jackson is someone that if you get minutes, again, I'm reading other things that Paul George has said, how much he really loves Reggie Jackson, how much he's improved, how much he thinks this season he's found kind of his own space in the offense. I still even think when Beverly comes back that Reggie Jackson is going to be someone that, hey, keep an eye on. I don't think he's going to be playing those 17 minutes per game. I think he's going to be more in the 20s.
Now, I definitely agree with one thing. Reggie Jackson is hot now, and you ride that hot hand because he is getting minutes. And with this offense and what he can do, he's definitely excuse me, a good piece to have. But with that being said, also we know the Clippers are in the trade market for guys like Nunn, and they might get another point guard. We got to see what happens with that. Long term, I'm not too sure where I feel about him long term, but short term, I'm definitely a fan of him. He's definitely someone I could put on my roster for the immediate future. He can win you a couple of games. He can put up some stats. He's really efficient, and then if like what Ricky says, it breaks out like that, you keep him, or maybe you package him in a trade in the 2-for-1, and you get something else. At that point, yes, you keep him. But if for some reason, when Patrick Beverly comes back, or they trade and they get another player there, then you assess that and you say, okay, hey, now this is a situation where, know what, maybe I need to reevaluate. And I think that's one thing about the waiver wire where, one, Ricky brought it up on Instagram, which is a shameless plug to follow us on Instagram because you get this information sooner sometimes.
Yeah, you do get it sooner than before.
Pick up and get those extra minutes in, because with COVID happening, you guys have guys coming out left and right. So sometimes you just need someone to fill in out of nowhere. And during the season, we'll be providing you with this information. So it's a great reason to follow.
When most of it was on Tuesday, and Reggie Jackson had these last 4 games, which helped me tremendously in my win for the week.
Yep.
So things that you're trying to get a win every week, especially if you're doing a head-to-head category. You're trying to get a win every week. Every win is important. So that's basically what you're trying to do, and we're trying to help you do that.
Yep. And one thing that I will say about the waiver wire, it's the same thing like drafting, and it's the same philosophy that greats like Bruce Lee had, because he's the one that started it. You want to flow like water. You want to crash like water. You want to move like water. You want to be shapeless. You want to be able to adapt to your circumstances and make because things can happen out of the blue. I remember in football, right? It was a couple of years back, right? And Tim Hightower had gotten the starting job for the New Orleans Saints because a player had went down, right? We picked him up. This guy wins the championship for us. Why? Because he was a waiver wire guy. We got him early. He came through in the final couple of weeks, wins you that championship. That's the same thing what these guys can be. And that's why you start identifying them early, because sometimes it breaks, like Ricky said, where this guy becomes a diamond in the rough, like quickly, like we think. And some of these other guys where he was really low ownership, and then he skyrockets up and he becomes a dominant player throughout the year. Or it becomes just a guy that you use for a couple of weeks or a couple of days because he doesn't pan out. But this one guy that I'm going to talk about right now, I think is severely underrated in leagues. And we're going to wrap up with him because I am shocked with his ownership rating. And that's going to be Royce ONeale with the Utah Jazz. Okay, I've had a love affair with this guy. I've been on and off with him. We fooled around. We've been on Team Skiller for a little bit, and then we kind of separate for a while, and then he comes back. But at the end of the day, he's one of those guys that I can really depend on finding on the waiver wire. He's only rostered in 27% of leagues right now. But if you look on the season, this is the full season now. He's averaging 32 minutes per game, 49% from the field, 81% from the free throw, 1.9 threes per game. He's getting 8 points, 6 rebounds, 2.4 assists, zero point 0.6 steals, 0.6 blocks, and 1 turnover. Over the last week, he's actually been more efficient, 51%, 90% from the free throw, 1.8 threes, 11.3 points, 6.8 rebounds, 2.8 assists, zero point 0.5 steals, 1.1 block, 1 turnover. Now, the thing about Royce ONeale, now he's super efficient. He's under the radar. He gets the minutes in this offense, right? He's not going to totally blow you out of the water with his stats, but if you're talking about an end of the roster or fill in the blank situation, this guy is a perfect option. He doesn't kill you anywhere. He gets you something everywhere, and he's a guy that you can guarantee is going to get a lot of minutes. And with getting minutes, you have the opportunity to put up points. Some guys literally are microwaves. Yes, they come out of nowhere and they put up points, but for the most part, you need minutes in order to get points, and that's one thing that he gets. Now, the thing is, you've had guys like Donovan Mitchell and Joe Ingles that have been out during the season that have come back and come in, and that's going to possibly impact what his minute situation is going to be looking going forward. I think that we saw a first dip in his minutes when we saw him in his last game on the 31st. He went down to 26, so that's something that we do have to monitor. But when he did go down in minutes, he had 4 threes, he had 12 points, he had 6 rebounds, 3 assists. So
he still was efficient with
right.
I mean, it is a dip just because you see it 33, 35, 35, 37,
36,
26.
37.
And you're right. Right. And like you said, people came back, then he got 26.
Yep.
But he was efficient in those 26 minutes.
Yep. So I think that he's a guy, and especially with only 27% rostership, that he should. If you have any player that's hurt, or I'm pretty sure you have a guy that's on your team that's shooting 42% from the field, that is putting up absolutely nothing for your team, that's actually hurting you more than it's helping you, because that's the one thing about basketball that's different than a lot of other sports. A player can hurt you more than he can help you because he affects your percentages. He affects your turnovers. So there's 3 categories where he can drive you down and then not provide you with enough categories in your other situations and your other stats to be worth it. And then he actually hurts your team. So sometimes you need to evaluate your team and say, hey, what's going on here? What is this guy performing? And I like to check my team, I would say, every couple of weeks, just go through and see what's going on. Like one guy that I'm looking at and I was speaking about in This Week in Basketball was Al Horford. Al Horford was out for about maybe like 6 or 7 games because of the birth of his child. So he's out for about 2 weeks, right?
Right.
And then he comes back, and before the season, he wasn't playing that great. He comes back, he has one big game, and then he's been kind of like, meh. Now, I think with the trade deadline coming up, you're going to want to probably hold him until the not the deadline, but the point where the players that were traded last season are eligibly traded this season. I don't know what you call that, but that roster spot, I think it's like in about a week or so, where guys that you traded for, you can trade again. Because once you make a trade with the team, there's a moratorium on you being able to trade. You can't trade him for like a certain amount of period once you've traded for him, and then it opens up for him to be able to be traded. And that's the situation that a lot of teams are looking at, because there was a lot of players that got signed and that they're still falling in the situation as well. So if you sign a free agent, you can't trade him away automatically. You have to wait a certain amount of period of time. So that's one situation that we're gonna have to monitor, because that's gonna affect some people's jobs, that are gonna change some situations, and some players may get reevaluated. Some of these fringe guys might lose minutes and change minutes, and a guy that was performing at 67 for you during the first couple of a month of the season, when a trade was made that hurt his minutes, now all of a sudden you have to reevaluate where he's at. So the trade deadline is going to be, I think, very specific to your teams to see what's going on and see whose situations change. And then from there, you're going to really evaluate. But your season, you got to flow like water. You got to make moves. You got to adjust. And you got to play the wire. And you got to get ready for anything that's going to happen. We're in week 7. So
and you also got to
kind
of plan ahead. take a chance on the guy that's low rostered if he's doing well. If you see reports as well, if you read, we all read. If you read reports, you see something,
Yep,
take
and
a
that's
chance on it. Sometimes it works out, especially in basketball.
yep, and that's only if like you don't have the space for it. We're not telling you to cut your mainstream
Yes,
guys
yes.
for you. We're
I
saying,
hope
hey,
not. Yeah.
you have injuries, you have waiver space, you have guys that are underperforming at the end of your draft that are not worth it and not holding space. And that's one thing you can always ask questions with in the comments below in any of our posts or in our videos. When you have questions about, hey, should I drop someone for this guy? We'll tell you, hey, send us a picture of your roster. I do it all the time on Instagram where I'll have someone send me a picture of their roster, and I'll look and I'll see, and I'm like, hey, at the end of your roster, these two guys really aren't performing. Pick up two guys like this, just rotate them in your lineup, see what's going on. Once they're not being hot, you drop them and pick up the next guy. Ricky, can you tell me what was your best pickup you want to say in your recent memory? Like, who was that last waiver wire guy that you got that helped you win and impacted your winning?
Oof. Trying to remember. Just have a bad so throughout the whole season, I'm trying to remember of a real.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of.
And you usually make some good waiver wire picks. So I mean,
I know. I just can't really think. I like I said, there's people I pick up.
There's one that comes to mind for you, Ricky, that I remember. It was
Which
a
one?
player that I had dropped. I had paper hands again. I sometimes have paper hands. It was baseball. It was a long season. I was a homer.
Oh, okay. I'm talking about All-Star. Okay, yeah. So that was Aaron Judge, which kind of not happened with quickly, but you had to let go quickly.
That was essentially his 52 home run season.
Yes,
I had him drafted on my team. Paper handed it, dropped it.
You dropped him. Someone else picked. James picked him up.
Yep.
Dropped him.
Yep.
Said, oh, look at this. And then I picked him up, and then he went. Well, he was already starting to go off. Well, not starting. When you guys dropped him, he was doing bad.
Yep.
Then when you guys during that waiver,
it was like literally the day Ricky picked him up, the switch was flipped. He said, "Ha ha ha, guys, I'm back."
Yeah, that was it. He did help me get into the. And you know what the thing is, everyone's got to remember. Listen, your first step is trying to get to the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Once you're there,
anything
you can adjust. At that point, you're dropping anyone if you have to.
Yep.
Just to get to the next round. So again, but the first step is to get their wins, get their waiver wire. Definitely is the best way to go do it.
Yep. And guys, I really want to thank you guys for taking your time with us here on Waiver Wire Wednesdays. We're just hoping that we can educate you guys on some of the guys that are out there. We're not saying they're the only guys. We're not saying that you can't, find someone better. You might. You find who's best for your team and who's available in your league. Because some guys may be rostered in 27% of leagues, but I'm watching them get owned in the league that I'm in. And then there's other guys that are rostered that aren't rostered that are probably rostered in your leagues. You never know what's happening. So you got to take a look in your specific league, see what you're looking at, and play according to your standings. Because, like I said, in 3 leagues that I'm in, Royce ONeale is owned, but he's 27% owned across leagues. So I think that speaks to the difference of who's available and what's going on.
And people take chances or whatever it may be.
And there's a lot of guys with 85% ownage that should be owned. Like, and I'll speak to this. 80% is guys like in Memphis because they were off for so long. Brandon Clark, the power forward guy over there, he's a solid guy. He dropped all the way down to like 60 something. He shot back up now. He's like 70, 80. Maybe I caught him at 70%. But people were starting to drop him because all his games are postponed. So you can't put him in injured spot. And people are trying to win their weeks. So some of those players are going to become available throughout the season. That you're like someone dropped Powell from the Raptors in our league, and I'm sitting there like
someone dropped Thaddeus Young in one of my leagues. It happens, people.
Yep. So I think that's another thing. That's why I say, sometimes I bring up a player and he may not be available or he may be available. That's why we try to go with the lower ownership to be more helpful. But sometimes depending on your roster and who you're or not your roster, but your league competition. These guys might not be available or other guys that are better might be available. So you have to look for yourself and understand what you're looking for. I think that's what me and Ricky want to teach here is like, we're showing you some of the guys that are available and we're explaining you the reasons why. And we're telling you, hey, it's kind of like investing in stocks. You want to hold it for a little bit, try to get the best out of your return. If it doesn't go good, you try to put it in for another one. If
Yeah.
not, you just get rid of it. And Ricky, with that, do you have any parting words for the guys as we end this waiver wire Wednesday?
No, definitely just check us out every Wednesdays. Definitely always keep a lookout. Biggest key thing is injuries, or COVID. People that because it's as you see, it's I have Jonas Valanusa. I can't pronounce his last name, but from the
Valanciunas.
Jonas Valanusa. Yeah, he's been on COVID for like 2 weeks. So again, it happens. Hopefully your league puts them on injured.
Yep.
Like when they have COVID, and then you could put them in the injury and get someone to help you out for that week and a half that they're gone.
Yep, and don't forget to check the Instagram. We keep it
Yes,
popping
definitely.
over there. We make sure that you get more up to date content over there, especially there on Twitter. Our two biggest platforms where
Definitely.
we make sure that we have the most up to date information that you can get. I think that if you're really about it, that's a great place to be because we make sure that we educate the community. There's so many other things that we could touch on in quick spaces where it's like, oh, we see this signing, oh, we see this player, especially on Twitter. There's a lot of quick hitters that I have where it's like certain situations, like David Akers. Cam Akers, excuse me, from the Rams. His situation now went from being extremely high to now I'm a little bit more like, what's actually going to happen here? Because now that you have Matthew Stafford, are they going to be the run dominant team that we've come to expect? Or now could they possibly air it out, which changes his dynamic? But
Right.
that's another conversation for another day, and you found that on Twitter. But guys, we want to thank you for everything. Have a wonderful, wonderful time, and peace.